This is Calcat, the Calcatster. It's Sunday the 30th of March. Put together movie 2. Raw. No special effects yet. Assemble movie 2. And go on to movie 3. Assemble movie 2 today and tomorrow. And do that. Go on to movie 3. In movie 3, we're no longer calling it the Cosmic Disunity, Starcrackers, we're Space Vanguards. Because that's taken. We're calling it the Vast Maelstrom instead. And we are including 34 pages of Vanguard Reunites from book 2, just 34 pages of it, because that is the end of one of the main villains in the story from the other story. And it's a good place to end it. Send off is okay, but this is more punchy. You want to have a meeting with these characters doing their thing. Also, kind of set it up that Rebel ships and the other stuff is another timeline anyway, so you don't need to worry about it. Because Raxler has taken care of not only Telek but Terrier as well. He said so in the attack on the McOran story. I threw a line in there where he says that. So we don't need to worry about those other two villains. He took care of them. And the McPherson thing was straightened out. There's the twin sisters. They're the Elijans in the story. I keep saying Libyan because they were making fun of Libby, which was mean, and Pine Hill. She's not from Libya at all. She's a little blonde girl, and now she's probably a little blonde lady in her 50s. Anyway, so, also that other story was a reflection of an idea she had come up with in 1992. So she was okay with that one. Also the later on the Starship Locations rewrite, so you okay with that one. Her twin sister, not so much. Kristen did not like that. Anyway, so we haven't seen them in years, many years. It doesn't matter. But yeah, we're not making fun of them anymore. We're just these are characters that are called something else, doing something else. Their names are even different. We wouldn't worry about it. And the crossover with the girls. Also, yeah, we changed to Cosmic Disunity to this other one because this other title is better, and the Disunity thing didn't work. And also, it's the name of a band. Either you make it either way, Unity or Disunity. So, yeah. But of course, Cosmic Maelstrom may also be a band. Vast Maelstrom may also be a band. But at least it reflects the original Starcrackers. One of the titles of Starcrackers in there, Maelstrom, and they have the books. That's perfect. It's perfect. Even though there's no black hole, the Maelstrom could also imply a large swath of space where things are going on. It doesn't need to be a swirling whirlpool like they thought black holes were before they figured out they weren't really that. It's just we're in the lake escape. I don't need to go on about black holes again. But yeah, it's not like that. It's not a whirlpool in space. It's a singularity. It's not a whirlpool. Yeah. So this is Calcat, the Calcatster, and this is continuing making of. It is 30th of March. This is Sunday. The other cast is downstairs. I think today we're going to take a break from doing filming today. Just start it tomorrow on Monday. Just because, it's starting a little late. Look the other stuff over there. Yeah, we know that at the end of that other story that it wasn't Desperate Living that he was referencing. It was Pink Flamingos. It doesn't matter. It's a John Waters movie in any case. But yeah, I was going through the making of thing there. The next is the continuation of book 1 of Space Vanguards. We had to change the title of movie 3 because both versions of that title that were alternate were the title of 2 different bands, so rock bands. So we said, okay, we're not trying to get click traffic to a rock band. They'd be disappointed. They'd go there and it's not the band. So yeah, we had to change the title. So now it has a different title for movie 3. That won't be any difference to you, but in deference to now returned Mark's Cards, who is on his way back. Uh, but it'll be yeah, Maelstrom. So the name Maelstrom in there. The Vast Maelstrom will be the title of the third story instead of the Disunity. I believe it was the Space Disunity. Doesn't really describe the story either. Space Disunity is wrong. That'd be the middle one, and we can't use it. So Space Potential. Space Potential is the Space Potential is the middle one, the one that's now going to be put together, and the other one is the Vast Maelstrom, Maelstrom with an O, meaning that it's the maelstrom of Cillian space, the scattered Cillian space. Not so much a black hole, but the scattered of Cillian space. Well, the key points and things like that going on. Yeah, also, this is kind of a brief, so it's cool. It's gonna delve only about 30 pages of an episode from book 2, because like the ending of this one, we wanted to end on a good note. The Queen Must Die is a kind of a dark episode, and we had to put Planet of Desire in there to make it more fun. So that's the same thing here. Kind of a dark episode ends the story, make it more fun. Send off is kind of final kind of thing. Let's go on to add Crew Reunites, which was an episode from 2001 from Prospectors that got pushed back into book 1. It was a flashback episode, so that it's well written. Episode 3, movie 3, book 1, going into book 2, but only that one because it's a little short. It's a little short, and also it's a good, better ending. Having the crew come back together. And Aurora Pettia is in it. So we have one of the Pettias shows up. And it kind of already set it up so that Raxler has already defeated the Cirrus battleship. No. Let's not do that. Rebel ship can't do that. Asla Trimate Caper would be about a dragon. The commander guy comes back and he takes over he takes the drugs. He steals all the drugs off the planet of the Planet of Desire, and carts off to Earth with them. That was done in 1997, and I don't know what we were thinking when I wrote that. We're not filming that. We're not filming Rebel Ship, where it's Wrath of Khan again. It's just literally the Wrath of Khan again. Their ships go back. I did that way better in the episode where we had the Admiral Lady, the Admiral Lady Esteban episode of other series in the same universe. We did that one. They did it way better in that one. I rewrote it completely into that episode. So very good time. Don't need to do that. So there's stuff we do and don't need to do. There's roughly 150 pages left, give or take, 140 pages, something like that, left of book 1, or one movie. 150 pages seems to translate to about 2 hours, a little under 2 hours in this case. And we're going to go on to movie 3, but I just wanted to let y'all know that, we're going to do that. Mark's Card's back from Japan, and the only pictures that were taken from Japan, we're not going to print them, are novelty characters and a furry bar. He didn't take any pictures in the furry bar, just of himself, which was funny. And at Tokyo Disney, just of himself. Remaining 50 pages of the story. So, wow. So, of that story. So, going on to part 3. Yeah, if you just get a couple of long days, you eat some big chunks of this movie. It won't be as much behind the scenes, because usually the third act got a ball rolling, and this is a long behind the scenes, a little over 2 hours. I trimmed it. I'm making another edit of it because I trimmed some things out, some extra redundant things like, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to mention, we almost did some of book 2. No, we're only doing one episode of book 2 because you have to make a fun ending. We actually don't want to make it a Deep Space Nine parody. That's no problem. And also, let's go with what the original show's Bible book said for this show. There was a show's Bible. That's what they call the TV show's Bible, the role-playing game thing. And it said, they're incompetent. they're space cops or space like that space precinct show with those guys in it. It's like Jackass kind of is like which came later. It's like Space Cop, which came later, and the idea is that they wouldn't command a space fleet. They couldn't. They would completely ruin that idea, as is evident from the Queen episode. They weren't at the front lines. They were just a distraction for the real people that were doing the fighting in the story, and they weren't making fun of any military group. They were the distraction. And it is weird morally that we have our main character Clark basically ordering two of her officers to go down there and assassinate the bad guy. And you figure, oh, that's kind of messed up. That's like dark mirror universe stuff. But you figure she knows they can't do it. She's not gonna be able to pull it off. She just sends them there as a distraction. Another distraction. She knows the Admiral lady's gonna be the one that's gonna do it. And is there a mistake with having McPherson in the background? No, not necessarily. Because we find out in that story that McPherson, Alicia Pettia is the one that took over the planet. McPherson couldn't have been there yet. McPherson is Libby Petty. It's the other girl. Works. Absolutely works. Yes, there's a little bit of a nod to Libby McClanahan in there, like that going on. It was a joke in the story. Yeah, we keep doing like rebel ship attack things. He sees the planets on the galaxy. There's another problem with later Canary Space as well. You start this massive war story arc thing, like Deep Space Nine. Yeah, and it doesn't really work. And that's why we stopped with the first book of Canary Space and this one, first book of this one too. Just go as far as we need to go with that. Jokingly, behind the scenes, we're all like, oh, the next Starship location's legacy is going to be an Avengers level threat. They're going to team together to stop the evil Cottle, who's returned from the Cillian realm, revived him. I think that's probably a joke. I don't think we should do that. That's funny, but it would be extremely topical. And it would only be funny for a little while until it became sad. So, make your stories funny. That's part of the problem with the later episodes of the story. And Prospectors, yeah, the novellas were fun. They were well written, but and you enjoy the storybooks, Space Vanguards. They're fun. But yeah, Prospectors is unfilmable. So was Book 7 of Canary Space, also unfilmable. Some of that other stuff might be filmable though. Some of that background extra stuff in Canary Space might be filmable. Like the one about the ship with a funny all cobbled together kind of ship thing story. That one might be good as an episode. That's something or something like it. You would do something like it. Say, okay, I liked the idea of this. Rewrite it as an episode of Legacy or one of the other shows. But I'm not saying you need to do that, and don't do that. I'm just saying, it works on a level. There hasn't been any discussion with Mark's Cards concerning that other story. When this is done rendering, I guess I'll start rendering the film, the second film, putting it together, assembling, as you see, second pass. And not yet worry about 3 until 2 is done. But also, I'm going to do 3 right afterward, and then worry about all the effects after that. And most of the effects are already in-house repeat effects anyways. So yeah, there's not a lot of, there's a shot that hits the ship. Pew, 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 pew. There was what's called, what's that term they call the effects that are already like in the can, and they're like test shots and whatever. Not test shots. What's that called when you have your special effects are stock footage. Stock footage. It's a stock footage shot of. I do want to build a ship, though. I don't want to build some ships. I want to build the Berkeley, which gets destroyed in this movie. I want to build that ship, and I want to build the other vessel as well at some point. I want to build the Berkeley and the other vessel, the Stronghold, which looks a little bit like the. Yeah, I don't know what the Yamaguchi thing was about, but yeah, they're none of the. Yeah, there was some mention of some of the characters' names and their backstories and where they were going and all that. Don't need to know any of that. Someone else can write that, and I can just like comment, like, oh yeah, that's kind of right, that's kind of wrong, whatever. Yeah, like what was said in the other story to the cast, quote unquote, in the story, it's 2025 to them, so they could easily go from 2488 and walk back to 2413 or even the 2325 and go visit that. They could totally do that. It wouldn't be time travel in their case because they're not going to do that. I'm just saying that they could if they wanted to. Yeah. So yeah. Also, it's kind of weird that there's a lot of 10 forward stuff in there. I was like the 10 forward stuff. Now, when you get to 1992, about when Mark's Cards was about 18, graduating from high school, we still didn't know what a bar was like. So it's kind of funny that we're in the middle of the stories. Oh, this is a bar. They go to the bar lounge, and it's like a coffee shop because we didn't know what a bar was like. Yeah. And then so he was. He'd have been 21 in 1995, and then he would have encountered that stuff. So yeah, it's kind of funny. Also, so Clark is not necessarily. He knows that he's not necessarily amorally ordering things around to go and assassinate bad guys, because it really wouldn't work anyway. It was just something a conceit on Star Trek. They would do that a lot. They would have episodes where they go to a planet and somehow Kirk or Picard or Janeway or to some extent the Discovery Lady, to some extent Strange New Worlds guy Pike and Burnham. Burnham and Pike would go there and they would somehow affect the natural flow of a planet, and it doesn't make any sense they ever would, because their sort of influence wouldn't. Why would they even meet the leaders of the planet? It really doesn't. They kind of address that in the Orville a little bit, but yeah, they could address this here too. Like, okay, as we go on to movie 3, we're going to see some other planets they affect the nature of, and the planet that they kept Arbiter of Keptera. Keptera is not Numissi and Latori. Yeah, they just happen to have Numissi people there, and Latori people. So Numissi and Latori are the original planets, and Keptera is a colony of those other two planets that they went off and did their own things on there. They're not related. They're a colony. It's in reverse. Yeah, correct that. They're a colony. Keptera is a colony. So it's in that same area. Keptera and K Draconis are two of the colonies. And the Draconians from K Draconis, of course. It appears that the Vanguards Space Advanced Guard universe is an adjacent parallel Earth, similar to Canary Space, but it's not the same Earth as the one in Canary Space. When they encounter Numissi and Latori, the planet seems like the Meekin homeworld from Canary Space, but may not be. It may be a colony again. And it's not supposed to be Zeta Reticuli. I think the only reason I can see that the ancient aliens people, gray people, thought the Greys, Zeta Reticuli, is it sounds cool. Other than that, tiny little system in the reticulum instrument. There it is. Movie 3. Yeah, movie 2 didn't take any time at all, really. When we got going. Just got to make sure that there isn't something going on in the park and some action going on and mowing lawns or something. And today there's a soccer game at the park. It would kind of be noisy. So anyway, but yeah, soccer. It's during the anniversary of the passing of Mom, who passed away on April 1st. Should go on April Fool's Day, but yeah, the anniversary of that legacy of it. It's a saga. Yeah. So
that's it for this for evening. And so we are continuing with our fan film studio series. Everything's cool with what we're doing. We don't want to do a fourth Vanguards story at this time. Why? There's no point in that. The reason we did it with Canary Space is because we had to. There was a fourth one there. It wasn't done yet. So that's in a nutshell what happened. But there's only 3 in this one. So. Still keeping with that, there's only 3 in this one. The other ones are too much like Deep Space Nine. We don't want to do that much. And also Babylon 5 a little bit too. But not as much. Doing the full-on war story is too much like an Avengers movie. You don't want to do that. And doing a political intrigue one, it's all about, ooh, let's get revenge on the evil bad guy that currently is a bad guy. We're going to get him. Ooh, it's like, that's not cool either. It worked in that story because it wasn't based on anybody. This is loosely based on a gag. That's fine. It's like, okay, your villain isn't based on anybody. It's loosely based on somebody from years ago who isn't really evil, but you're just spoofing it, the idea that they would be. That's fine. It would be like doing a TMS one where they literally go and find the cult people and find the master lady and confront her. It's like, well, that would be dumb. I wouldn't do that. That would be like, okay, no, I won't do that. And yeah, why wouldn't Raxler destroy the rebel ship before it ever launched? Because we've changed that so that he says, yeah, yes, I killed the rebel ship. The bad guy was going to kill me one day. I had him killed. Oh. It's funny that Raxler and Sadre have switched places. And that Raxler is, even though he would have a voice like this, he would sound like Esto, because it's the guy who played Esto. He instead sounds like Tim, so it's flipped. Tim was Sadre and Raxler. Switched it. I think it actually works better. Also the Clark, that works better. The characters. And now we're on a roll because we have the sets. They're where they are. They're where they need to be. Even though at one point during production we did knock over one of the sets with a lamp and it shattered one of the bulbs in the ground, and had to put the set back together. Great. One led to the other. The lamp knocked over, fell onto the set knocked over. Great. But yes, so that's why the set of the Zuri ship / Severa ship looks similar. Actually, the Severe, a Severe was a demerit or a pink slip for the office. If you're wondering what a Severe is, and that's what they called them at Pine Hill. So if you were going to go to the office, you were given a Severe. If you've gotten in trouble, you go and get a Severe. And if you got 3 of them, you'd end up going to detention after school. And I didn't have cell phones back then. So. And they didn't have the uniforms either. They didn't have uniforms. The school didn't have uniforms. Still the kids with learning disability. Yeah. Yes. Severe. The Severe. Yeah. And Henderson's father shows up, and I have an idea who the father guy is going to be, and it's going to be funny. If it actually is messy, that'd be kind of different. I'm not sure if he's going to be or not. We'll see. That'll be a difference. It's 1 and 2. 40 minutes. It was originally just 45 minutes episode. But because each one of these episodes is half an hour long, it's half of one. It's like 15, 16 minutes. Yeah, this is half of one. It's 30 minutes. 15, 16 minutes. No, maybe a little over that. What would be half of 45? 22 minutes. They're all about 22 minutes. Some of them shorter than others. Yeah, and making Azeroth have like skills doesn't make sense either. He's not autistic. He's just on a different planet. Everyone else. I don't know if there are any specific characters that are ADHD or autistic in the story. It's written in the 90s, so I don't know if there's any inkling of that yet. I don't think so. Also, it was before the internet. which makes a certain amount of sense anyway, because like the only reason the internet works is because all the satellites connected together and towers and things like that make the internet, World Wide Web, work, right? If it's in a different part of the galaxy, you're on a ship or something, it wouldn't have any effect at all. You'd have to have satellites around the ship, and they'd have to be in contact with the planet. Never made sense in Star Trek that they had subspace radio. We do here because it's a Star Trek spoof, but technically you wouldn't. They'd never be able to contact each other. It's another goofy thing about sci-fi story tropes as well. They put them on sleeper ships or something, and they find them on a cryo ship, and they're cryogenically frozen. That would be really impractical. I would think that an alien race would invent warp drive before it invented the cryo freezers, because you have to revive them from the dead, because they're dead, and put them back together, and all their muscles be atrophied and everything. They'd be screwed. And then, and you'd have to spend so much more on that than just, why don't we just raise them on the ship and, like, slow their aging or something? Yeah, so they can be walking around the ship. So, story-wise, that was silly. And, the transporter was only invented for Star Trek because they didn't want to use a shuttlecraft model originally. They didn't want to use a shuttlecraft model over and over again. It was expensive to show the shuttle shots. So they were like, let's have them use a transporter a lot. Wow. Nowadays they have CG. But yeah, that's funny. Yeah, the shuttle model would be expensive because let's get them down up and down to the planet of the transporter. Transformer kills you every time it beams you down because it completely disintegrates you, then reintegrates you. Which means that technically in Star Trek Motion Picture, they could have. Anyway, they could have just beamed them back and reassembled. Jumping into movie 3, the final chapters of book 1, just a teeny bit of book 2, is Plunderers of Lydios, latest episode, which has Sarah on the Zuri ship. Let's just begin. Yeah, so this is an added. Okay. So yeah, of note, this is an added scene because the barkeep acts like Rom. Originally in the 90s, it was supposed to be Max Grodenchek as Rom in the episode. It was supposed to be like, they go to Deep Space Nine. Like they're ripping up Deep Space Nine. So, but in this version, it's not. It's Nog's special son. And Nog has a daughter, Tina Kira, and because it's 2488 now. So Nog has a daughter who is a governess. She's famous, allegedly, Admiral Nog, but he has a special son who is special, and he's called Stembolt. So here's the scene. This is very funny. It's very funny. So we had to make it him because most of 353 was an arm wrestling scene between the crew on the bridge. We don't need to do that. Aside from ripping off Alien, I think the first one, and one of the other movies too. No, we're not doing that. Just not doing that. No. Okay, next scene is after 390. 390, and we have gone on ahead in the script and said we do not need a scene again with Asloth. Referencing something that happened in the family holiday story. Why the hell is that in there? That's stupid. Why did I put that in this episode? I don't know, but that's what it's from. Somebody ran up a phone bill in a family holiday store. Not going to say who. It wasn't me. But why? Why is that in there? That makes no sense. There are some things in here that don't make sense, even though it is sort of a proto version of what later became the Arbiter, and it also became parts of a little bit of Fearful Symmetry, and then the Arbiter. But then the Arbiter became Judgments, and then it became the Arbiter again. So later on, the Arbiter kept Terra. But yeah, all over the years, over the 25, 30 years, now 35 years. So we have here another scene with Henderson talking to
Asimov again about his father. We kind of already have an element of that, so I figured we don't need that. So that's a whole 2 pages that should not be in here because the backstory with Asloth and Henderson developing sort of a weird friendship is not. Well, yeah, it's filler. It's a filler. It in the story it kind of made sense, but as filler it doesn't really make sense here. We have this is the 3rd movie, and we don't need filler, and also we don't need scenes that are mimicking fictional adventures versions of which the fictional adventures was new at that point. Versions of On Location and On Location events being included in the story. We don't need that. And I think that was cut from Fearful Symmetry when it was a version of this. And then the later drafts do not include this. So we are not including it here either. And that's just odd. As for that weird sort of heavily rewritten phone story, what happened there was there was a certain relative, I won't say who ran up a phone bill, but they on a card. And the thing is, the father person, stepfather, the family member, he should have seen it on his credit card, even back then, and gone, oh, these charges aren't real. I didn't pay for these charges. That's all you need to do. Yeah. So Asloth referring to that is weird, and but he didn't do that. He just got mad. So so we have. It's weird that that's in there at all. That's just weird. Also, Asloth referring to the cat again. Having a cat. He already did that. Literally, that scene happened earlier, like twice. Okay, he had a pet kitten. Funny. The dog guy is a pet kitten. No, it's not funny 3 times. There's some frustrating elements with this story. Okay, there's going to be a few slight revisions on where the scenes are placed for these next 2 scenes to work. I'm just going to do them. You won't know what it is in the script, but originally it was a meeting room. I've changed it to put it in the engine room and have most of the scene in the engine room where they're doing their action, because it makes more sense. So let's do this. Great. We have to reshoot that whole scene again because it wasn't Clark. It was Hagenruder. How Hagenruder got in there, I don't know. But we have to do it over.
Another Tim episode. Yeah, there were a couple. So yeah, early on, Mark Scarts, Cal the Cat, Tim Canterell, we were all the sort of writing team. A little bit of Jim Chacon in there. Mostly Mark Scarts and Tim. Writing a story about pirates invading the ship. It was repeated in several other stories, including in some of the later Starship locations and stuff, and in Prospectors as well. The idea is similar to the Pakleds in that the bad guys are incompetent, and also similar to the Pakleds, it will remind you of the powerful Pakleds in Lower Decks in say season 4. Because clearly they were aware of the Pakleds, but also they were aware of space pirates and things like that, and stuff. We thought at first, was this a reference to early Brian's story, the stories from the Storycast? If it is, it'd be a wee bit too early, but no, maybe not. Maybe they were kind of around at that point. They would have been, Drew and Drea would have been very, very young. And they would have been adults, well, different, certainly. As your basic 22-minute episode of I'm trying to fool the pirates who have gotten hold of a powerful weapon, and you'd probably say like, oh, they got then they would say, oh, you're spoofing Star Wars, the rise of the final Skywalker movie, the Rise of Skywalker. Where there was a Death Star ship that had a firing Death Star gun stuck to it. No, we were not. This story was written in 1994. So, early 1994, during the second season of Deep Space Nine. And there's no way that We could be referencing a Star Wars movie of which the prequels didn't even exist yet. So this story is still that story. It's still that 1994 story. Clearly, I've had some writing experience at this point in storybooks and writing and stuff, and the characterization is better. The story. What they're doing is better. I'm not sure whether it works when Schmidt gets knocked out. It does look like a pen, but that's all right. But so, anyway, so and then I looked ahead. In the other stories to see whether there was a reason to include dragon again. I know that there's a similar dragon, Terran's dragon, who flies the dragon's teeth, the ship in the storybook version, episode, short story version of the Azul Trimac Caper, filmed in 1997, or not filmed, written in 1997. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to go on to book 2 and do any of that stuff. The only thing for book 2 we're doing is the Rose Lighter appearing story, the beginning of book 2, because that 34 pages fills in some, it wraps up things, basically. It doesn't fill it in, it wraps up stuff we want to wrap up. And it's not connected to the Rebel ship, which is not going to be made in this timeline, because they've killed the main guy. They killed Terran's dragon, and they killed Terran. And they've probably killed Ellerat off camera, unless he appears in that story. I think Ellerat does reappear in the later story, Rose Lighter story. Yeah, so I think he's in that one. But he's not. The villains aren't serious villains in this story. They've gotten a hold of weapons, powerful weapons, and the Star Wars prequels were done in 1999 to 2005. And they were way earlier, right, around this time period. It's not about them either. It was 1999. So yeah, it wasn't that either. It wasn't any of the Star Wars stuff. It's probably a spoof. There were a few Deep Space Nine episodes that dealt with pirates trying to take the ship. There were Next Generation episodes like that. There was Gambit 1 and 2. So yeah, they've done it before. So we're just spoofing that. That's all it is. Yeah, a pirate guy and everything. Yeah, there's it's a fine place to start. It has, we changed the ending so that the dragon character is executed by the guy. I'm not sure whether Raxler didn't set the whole thing up just to get to the pirate ship. It's kind of implied in the story, but wasn't actually said in the story until we added it. Because, he set it up. He wanted to expose the pirate ship so they could catch it and then be abandoned the pirate ship with a big weapon. Kind of makes the Luxon moot. I think the Luxon's mentioned a few more times, but it's not to the level that it was before. So at this point, it's kind of like, well, we're getting to this is the third part of the trilogy of this series, and we kind of want to wrap that up. So if the Luxon does happen to reappear near the end, I think there's a Grundahar scene on the planet with Thompson and Raxler at some point, and some other people doing stuff. I think that's later on. I think that's in this one. It might be in this. If it's not, then it's not. So we'll see whether he reappears. But for now, he doesn't reappear much. So we have so kind of rewrote, kind of like what we did with that Canary Space thing, which was the fourth act, sort of of that quadrology. We added on to, we changed some things so that the other books might not happen, basically. So here we had the same kind of thing. We don't want this dragon guy to show up again. This is it in the story. From early on. He's not the main villain of the book, in other words. He's just a villain who shows up. There is no main con-like villain guy. He's just one villain in one story. We've gone to Differences 1 and 2 and Training Day and all that stuff. And those are later episodes, and they're not beholden to, whatever order they're in. They're not in order of we have to do this next, or we have to do that next. it might even created a little bit of a can of worms in that you kind of implied that the difference in story, which was before the Arbiter, and it was rewritten as the Starcracker story, and then it became the Arbiter, and then the other one became Judgments, and it became Judgments too. That you might have screwed up the timeline a little bit, and that if it's 2488, and they said this other event happened 70 years ago with the Chimera A, you threw in a line like that in there. I don't think that matters because it could still be, because I threw in another line later on saying, well, it was the Chimera A. Is that still in service? Yeah, so it was the Chimera A. And one of its last missions was about 70 years earlier when they did an adventure where they went to resettle the missing Latori on this Zeta Ret planet system. Zeta Ret system. And now they're going back to the Zeta Ret system 70 years later. Yeah, there. Doesn't need to be any more explained than that. That's what they do. It's just backstory. It's information. Anderson's father will have to be, of course, Messi from the other story. So we'll see what he's up to, being all obnoxious. Yeah, so that'll be next. So this one, yeah, it works. It's its own sort of insular story. It's the last, I think it's pretty much the last Luxon story as well. Although Raxler does reappear with other ships. And by having him steal the pirate ship at the end, which he does in the original script too, he doesn't really need the whole garrison anymore. He's got the pirate ship. But yeah, they're not competent. They're just acting weird. They're not competent. Anyway, so that's not going to ramble on about anything else. Not going to do anything else. It's going to get cut out anyway. Just going to say, like, okay, this is what this story was. It took 2 days to make it, and there's no behind the scenes because, except for that one part where we accidentally, because Hagenruder's character looked a bit like the other one, we just kept filming it and then realizing about halfway through the scene, oh shit, it's the wrong person. It really is the wrong person. It's not Clark. What's going on?
Differences. Became 2 other episodes. It was expanded into Deep Space Nine and a Voyager script later on. 1994, and now we're going to do it. Here we go. Okay, deleted scene, traipsing about the ship, running into officers, bumbling around, no dialogue really. The father guy's moody and Henderson is moody. But they don't really say anything. This would be kind of weird to film. So we're not going to film it. Yeah. Going to the bridge scene. So originally in that other scene, Asloth was in the room for some reason. Again, they threw Asloth in there because I don't know what I was doing when I wrote this. I know it's me and Mark Scard wrote it, but yeah, I don't know what we were doing. But I'm sure I wrote that scene just to include him. And it made no sense, so I gave it to Carrie. Kerrigan, the line. Also the part where this guy inadvertently tells Bea, here's a suit. But let's not show that. Let's not actually show that. Because it needs to be a mystery. Showing what he's doing implies that he's completely implicit. Also, it's interesting that in the I added a line in here indicating that Henderson is indeed not the son of Messi. He is merely a son of the planet where Messi is on. And that makes more sense. Why does everybody have to be a kid if it's somebody else? It makes more sense. So this guy's another major, the Henderson father guy, and he is a follower of Messi. He's not Messi himself or Messi's grandson. He's a follower of Messi. And this guy is also descended from that planet, Messi's planet, in the Meson. So it's related to the Meson. So it makes perfect sense that both of them would be there. And yeah, so we're going to do this next scene, and yeah. There needs to be a slight revision here. He hasn't left the ship yet to go meet with Conrail. He's not haven't left. So yeah, because otherwise the death scene in the shuttle bay, the kind of confrontation in the shuttle bay, would have happened already. And yeah, so note making of The scene does not take place in the bar any longer. It literally takes place right here. Because it makes more sense. It literally takes place right here. So yeah. As we begin scene 40, 417, I want to stay on the bridge. Because the transition here is weird. And they're already on the bridge, and they're already doing their thing, so I'm just keeping them on the bridge. Second unit going down on the action scene, and action, yeah.
This is Calcat the Calcatster, and this concludes the fourth. This concludes the filming of Differences, the episode that that goes back to the Next Generation. This was an episode that I think I already mentioned some of the backstory of this particular segment in movie 3 here. That it was eventually reworked as 2 other scripts. For Deep Space Nine, it was worked as it was redone for Deep Space Nine as Fearful Symmetry, and then which became the ship, and then it was worked for indirectly, and just pieces of it became the ship, and the Arbiter for Voyager, and it was not accepted in Voyager, but it was looked at twice. It was stamps on it. Those rejection scripts and things have long since disappeared. Don't know where they are. I think they were thrown out with the other move. So yeah, they were around, but I think we threw them out. I think, what are we gonna do with these? I think there's versions of the scripts that were saved that weren't destroyed. But yeah, they were. This was written. This was a Next Generation one. Differences, and it was written in the 90s. The Deep Space Nine had started. It was about a year and a half into Deep Space Nine, and so there's a lot of Deep Space Nine like elements. It's more serious. Doing the episode itself was certainly different. With Starship locations, we've done one of these before. We adapted Fearful Symmetry and the Arbiter of Keptera for the Starship locations series. In Destinations, we had them do those 2 episodes. On the suggestion of David Gerald and Triple Guy, said, why don't you do some of your fan films? You mentioned them, do those. So we did. It didn't occur to us to do those. And in doing so, we have negated most of the backstory of Prospectors. We don't need to do Prospectors, because we already did. There was an episode with Prospectors where it was basically the Voyager episode of the Arbiter. This story is an early version of both of those stories. That is a much more condensed early version of it with them. It would have been a 2-part episode. It had been on Star Trek, but it wasn't really that long. It would have been like it was short. So it wasn't used. The stuff going on in it, and I'm just adding this because there isn't much making of. There doesn't need to be for book 3, but I thought that I should add doing this episode is interesting because it's extremely woke and it's very Star Trek. Star Trek always has been woke. The episode is also, there was other drafts of this where I think it's the Judgments one from Prospectors, which you're never going to see, where they suggest that we're not going to do that. It's redundant. Where the racist guy on the ship actually has an ailment that is causing him to act weird, and that's why there's a line toward the end of the story saying, well, the ailment it's an excuse for them being like that, and it's not reflective of anybody current at all. I'm thinking the story, the character in it, and everything is vaguely reminiscent of a couple of people from Evergreen in 1994. We won't name their names, and they were present in 1994, and we just won't name their names, but they were like that. So there were a couple of people like that. That's this character, the character of Henderson's father. That Henderson is loosely based on an amalgamation of 2 characters from Pine Hill era and one that isn't, and maybe a third as well, but mainly Pine Hill. And there's the confusion in the Jamie Messi. It's not supposed to be him,
It's just an amalgamation. And if the real one saw this, then, oh no, no, it's not supposed to be you. It's not even his kid. It turns out it's Henderson. He's the character of Messy with Y's, Messy with S's and Y, Messy, different spelling. We had the Mob Planet in Starship Destinations. He'd come to the Mob Planet. This is one of his cronies' sons. So it's not him. It's his cronies' son. It's not his son. So that whole thing, Mob Planet hint in there was like, no, he was never meant to be him. He was not related. One of his cronies. Yeah. So that's fine. And and then there was another version of it where in the Fearful Symmetry they suggested, well, the changelings and the Dominion and all that stuff, and the Dominion made the guy turn on them and stuff and kill the guy because it was a Dominion agent, and well, we didn't want to do that here because it's not in the script like that. Just shot it the way the script was written. It was actually a difficult shoot. It was interrupted a few times. It should have been done already 3 days later. There were errors, but we just mulled over them like a Deep Space Nine episode where there just weren't very many funny bloopers. There weren't any bloopers. It's like, oh, the guy fell over. He's drunk. Okay, pick him back up. Or the camera slid off the thing. Put it back. Yeah, so there's not a lot of that because at this point we're trying to get through the third movie and get it done. Hopefully before the middle of April. Get the third movie done and say, okay, it's done here in April. Because we have we released in the middle of March the Sphere of Influence, and these other two will be just about a month later, a little less than a month later. The other two will come out right after the other. They'll be put together one right after the other. And it's definitely the end of this trilogy. This is the third book is it. It's the end of the trilogy. There's only a little bit into book 2 just to have a better closure. The episode that was the premiere of book 2 is a better closure than Send Off. So add it to the end of Send Off and have them come back together. Crew Reunites is the name of the episode. Janoli seems absent from the episode entirely, and there's a line at the very end with it, she's on assignment or something. I'm not sure why that was, except that when we wrote the script, she just wasn't. There wasn't anything for her to do. But yeah, by 1994, the role-playing game was fairly serious and overblown, and kind of running its course. And there was already the annoying time travel stuff that already happened, and this episode was like after that, and so the characters seem annoyed at each other because of that other stuff that happened. They're getting toward the end of that series run, and 94. It ended before San Jose State started, and that was late 94. It's not anybody known. We didn't know. Even the ailment that was mentioned is loosely based on some people from Evergreen. Not anybody current. Somebody from Evergreen. But Evergreen in 1994. The dude. And there's but it's vaguely based. It's in it's very simplistic in its execution of that story idea, with the character, his prejudices make him vulnerable to being manipulated by the alien, and then also he wants to be an a-hole, so he basically causes the diplomacy to fail, but then they have to make the diplomacy work. That was kind of a twist episode that Mark's cards at the time were like, are you sure we want to make them actually succeed in a mission, because they've been failing in the other ones? And the theory with this story was that, well, they gotta win sometime. They gotta actually succeed on occasion, otherwise. Yeah, it's so they succeed. They succeed because the other guy is worse than them at his job. So they're able to... It's close enough for government work, basically. That's the joke. That 94 threw in there, that line. But I don't think we actually mutter that line in the story, actually. So it's different. A very simplistic idea of, done better in Alt Transformers Mush. later on, many years later, decades later, we did a better now. Um, also mirroring that weird Star Trek episode where Spock encountered those aliens and wanted to kill each other because they had different painted skin. That kind of idea in the old Transformers mush, Starscream basically chides the humans and says, the humans are fighting over what color they are. That's ridiculous. All Transformers are many colors. Doesn't mean anything. He's got a point. So in this story we have these aliens that are going doing their thing, and it's like, why did that really? Also, Next Generation early on, Q, when he shows up to the first episode to face them and says, you are fighting over tribal god images and when wars and things, and that kind of thing. And then so there's you want your story to explore racial relations type of thing. Does that mean that they had CRT at Evergreen? They had a version of it, but it was a junior college version, and I took it. Yes, they did. They had CRT. I took it. Yeah, absolutely. I took it. It was in Arts and Humanities. I was an English major at the time, so take it. General Studies in English. And in San Jose State, it was an English major until '98. When I graduated in '98, an English major, creative writing, editing, and then journalism in 2008. So. But yes, but these scripts were done during that writers thing. There was a writer contest between 93, 94 roughly, and early 99. It was a long time. They got a lot of fan submissions before Enterprise. The end of Voyager, the 2001, I think it was kind of done. They just didn't want to accept any more scripts, so it was 99. The end of Deep Space Nine, basically. They let fans go on the early internet blogs and stuff, and blog with the creators and whatever, and they do other things and comment on them and stuff. It was an interesting time period. They didn't have as many people doing stuff. They were more connected. They let fans who weren't famous do some pitching for Star Trek. But they don't do that anymore. They stopped as of 2000, 99, 2000, so on. They don't do it anymore. And even though there were some things to the contrary in 2015, 2016, when some of the super fans said, well, we won't name his name, but one of them got all excited, went on all the trades, went on there and said, I'm going to pitch for Star Trek. He was lying. He wasn't going to pitch for Star Trek because I knew at the time, and I wasn't the only one that knew at the time, no, 2015 you could not pitch to Star Trek. It says on their website. They will throw away anything you send to them. They'll just toss it out. We won't see it. But back in the day, in the 1990s, 20 years earlier, they were like, oh, no, you can pitch to Star Trek. We'll accept your story idea. No? I told a guy recently, there was I actually had a line or two of one of my stories. They didn't take the story. They ended up putting a line or two of and a character in Star Trek, in Deep Space Nine, in the episode The Ship, the female Vorta. They were not thinking of that. I thought of that first. Absolutely. They weren't going to include a female Vorta until my script came into them, and they were like, oh, we should have a female Vorta in this episode. We like this guy's story, but he doesn't have an agent, so we're going to just ignore the story, but we're going to take some lines from that script. The female Vorta going, oh yes, there are female ones. The only time it happened once. They had a female Vorta. She's the Vorta, or the Dominion master guys. Yeah, so that was, and the only reason I'm mentioning that is because that's an early version of this episode. This episode is an early version of that. So it's kind of like, oh, yeah, that's kind of like that. Yeah, the ship. Yeah. So, Fearful Symmetry also, that title was stolen was also put in Strange New Worlds, the book series. Under another author that used it, but I also used it in one of mine, and they took theirs instead. They liked theirs better. I liked it. I stole it from the Blake poem, Tiger, Tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night. Which one? Mortal eye can see, then thy fearful symmetry. Defy thy fearful symmetry. And it would work with the Borg or the Dominion, so it was the Borg instead. So it was the Dominion in the other. So yeah, they know with that. But that's in a nutshell the crazy stuff going on the set. So we had an episode where basically prejudiced character leads to the death of an ambassador guy, and then you have them going like, oh, yeah, he's going to reprimand him and send him to the mental colony. And it's like, yeah, we never really see him again. And no, he ended up not being Leo Star, but he's Leo Star-like. Like Lion Star. Leo Star-like. So Leo Star is not connected to it. It's just a figure that Leo Star figure. And it turned out that it wasn't the big three. It wasn't the Red Letter Media guys at all. It had nothing to do with them in this version. In the Destination story, it did, and they were in the background of the ship. And they do reference that episode. So this story is canon with that Destinations episode, and it says that Lemisi and Latori are the main colonies, and these are colonies of those planets. Just renamed them after those events in 2406, I believe, 2405, 2406, and it's now 2488. So they go to another planet that had a colony of theirs that had a similar draconian issue, draconian racial issue. They got to go down. And at the end, I threw in a line where they reference, where Clark is like, oh yeah, I suspect that Captain Locarno will be proud of us for having succeeded 70 years later. So that actually ends with them actually having succeeded in something. We go on to the next story, which is Training Mission. And then let's say that that's another two-parter. We didn't really know how to do this story. We just did it. But we can tell that the writing craft is a little better. Getting better at the writing. Creative writing classes. The various other writing class people. It wasn't Susan Shaw. I was going to say Susan Shaw. Yeah, she was one of them. But yeah. Interesting that she was a blind professor. At Evergreen. She was still living as of 2017 or 2018, sort of target. And she recognized my voice. She couldn't see me, of course, but she recognized my voice. Oh, it's Adam from Evergreen. It was like 25, 30 years later or something. Yeah. A little over 33 years later. Recognized my voice. But I would go on with other stuff about other characters cited or not, but it doesn't matter, so I'm not going to. The guy in the story that's meant to be Bea is an imitation of a character trying to do an imitation of Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman. Well, he comes in and he says it's kind of like the Colonel Sanders, but a little less like that. And then, of course, we have our Lettermark bad guy, Shatnerized bad guy, playing the other guy. We have Canreal, and we have one of the other guys from Canary Space in there. We have what appears to be it's not supposed to be the same guy. It's just Wilcor. Wilcor and Canreal. Yeah, Wilcor looks like the Maelstrom, and it has the same voice because it's the same actor. Came back and I want to do that character again. But in this other story, well, we killed that character. But we didn't kill Wilcor. Oh yeah, you can play him. So he comes back. Raxler implied that he was going to kill him, but I don't think he did. I think he just knocked him out. He shows up. And next we have Training Mission 1 and 2. It's about the same length as this one, about 40 pages, 40 minutes. And then we have two more after that as a Cult of Oddities and Send Off. And then we have an added on episode from the other story. All about 30 minutes each. So it seems that there's another couple hours of this movie left. Because we're just at the beginning. This is just the first hour. A little less than the first hour.
So, on the precipice of a beginning production on this, on Saturday last week, caught a cold. And it persisted all the way until now. It's now Friday. So that's why there hasn't been any filming. We're on the precipice of doing this episode. And then now we have done 10 pages of the episode. And I'm going to that's it for the evening. I think that's enough just for the evening to start out after a week. Put the just the raw version of the other episode together. This is Training Day. This episode is sort of a remake of a story called Silly Fleet Academy, and it has the characters in it from that. That was actually a pseudo live action Graham Cracker Chronicles Silly Track story that we made in honor of we were making fun of like what they were going to do in '89 after Star Trek V, until Star Trek V bombed. And then they're like, oh, we're not going to do Starfleet Academy. Now, in 2025, they are doing Starfleet Academy. But they're setting it in the Discovery universe. So they don't know what they're doing. It should be set in the Picard universe, but they didn't ask me. But here, we've been doing our own version of Academy since we started Starship Location, Strange Worlds. So, yeah, we've already been doing it. So we're doing more of it here. I'm assuming that after this story, there's we have a legacy episode again with some of these crews joining the other crews in a sort of Marvel level event kind of thing, rounding out the summer movie stuff. We haven't worked that out yet, so don't worry about it. But this story, we're going to finish. This is book 3, or movie 3, the end of book 1, and just a teeny bit of book 2, the opening scene of book 2 is going to be the very last one. It's like 34 pages. Just because, well, it would be a little short, and also the ending send-off is not that great an episode as a finale. It has a cliffhanger. Just put the other half of the cliffhanger on it. That's all. Anyway, this is the Academy story, our Academy story, and the Academy guys aren't in it as much. It turns out it's a Thompson and Nguyen episode. Nguyen was not introduced as a token character. She wasn't introduced to be like, oh, well, kind of. But what kind of not? She was introduced because there was a slew of There was, I keep messing this up. There were at Evergreen College, something unheard of happened at Evergreen College. We weren't expecting it because at Pine Hill, most everybody was a white dude, and there were like 3 black kids, and everybody else was a white dude. There was like 1 Asian kid. But when Evergreen, there were like a third of the school, Asian kids. So we're like, oh, we got to include, in our story, we got to include that, because college guys. So we got to include one in our story, because then we'd be inclusive, include that. Knowing nothing about that. So we threw in this line about the other thing. Did it better than they... But yeah, there's a line about that. It's not an exotic thing. It's just that people were weird back then, and I know now. So they make that point in the stories. It's not because she's hot. That's silly. And Thompson is not hot. So there you go. But yes, the character is not based on anyone specifically. We just threw her in there. There's a couple that she could be, but not. I think it's just an amalgamation of different characters and people and how they acted and stuff. It's not even necessarily a Jung Swan person, I don't think. I think it's an Evergreen person. It's loosely based on Lori Chu from back in the day, but she wasn't necessarily like hot to trot either. So I don't know what's going on. Either were we. But yeah. So I'm not sure what that's about, other than Nguyen has a personality quirks that didn't seem to come out in later episodes. She just became the Rolaren of this other series, basically. She replaced Wesley. She's a Rolaren. She doesn't do much. And they shake it up a little. They say, like, okay, it's been a full year since the Sphere incident. Almost a full year. Yeah, it's been like roughly a full year. So, like, this book starts in 2489. Clark's academy graduation year was 2463. It's the beginning of the year in the story, and somewhere in the beginning of the year, maybe a month into it, roughly, which is when the Sphere story was, a month or two. So yeah, the part 3 of the story is actually in the novel. It's 3 years later, but that's silly, just because we didn't know what we were doing. We added up the years, and each season was like 8 chapters of the story, and it just went on because it was like a year later when we got around to it. So yeah, they so we're not going to worry about the other books. It's just book 1. Book 1, and this is movie 3, and back to back movie 2 and 3, and we missed a week. So yeah, we have to get back to it. I'm not doing anything more with this one. There's nothing unusual, nothing untoward in it. Thompson later will have a sparring scene with Raxler. It's a little odd, but it kind of makes sense if you think that Raxler is in his 30s, slightly younger than Clark, and in his this version of Raxler, and that he's, or even maybe a little older than Clark. That's never really explicitly said. They're in the same class. So. But Thompson would be a little younger. He'd be in his early 20s. And so he wouldn't necessarily react to a sparring session with a 38-year-old guy. It makes sense if he was like the master and like the pupil. I don't know how that's going to be filmed. I'm guessing that they verbally spar instead, because really can't shoot that with action figures. It's not going to look like anything. I was discussing that with Mark Scards over the phone last night. That a lot of that filming stuff. How would you do that and stuff? And explaining that these stories, there's not a lot of movement because there kind of can't be. They're plastic. So unlike a big budget Hollywood movie where they're oh yeah, we've spent like hours and hours doing stop motion with the action figures, we can't do that. It's not possible with these cameras to do stop motion. So if they're asking about, oh, why can't you do the stop motion? That would take forever. No, go motion. So we had something called a go motion, which is basically your puppets, your puppetry. It's like Muppets. You're moving the puppet a little bit and making it do things a little bit. Go motion. On a larger scale, go motion was used for a lot of the model work in Star Trek: The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine for about half. Where they would put it on a rig and they'd film the ship and the rig. Usually they'd film it upside down and then turn the image around. Yeah, so what's action figures? Yeah, apparently there's a Japanese Transformers fan film series, a spin-off where they're doing like visually realistic backgrounds, like it's outside, and they're like, but the figures are toys, kind of like Transtech, which is funny. That's kind of awesome. They're doing Transtech. Good luck with that. Anyway, so that's this.
It is April 14th, I believe, yes. Monday, April 14th. Trudging along on production of this thing and doing a night shoot. And let's begin. That's as much as we can put on there. Let's do it. So, this is Calicat the Calicaster on April 14th, Monday. This was a night shoot, an evening night shoot of the Zuri Planet scene, the Grand Horror scene. We separate some of the other stuff. There's a bridge scene. There's later Brack shows up in the story. Elrad is Brack. It's the same guy, so you don't need to keep saying, oh, he's nuts. He's schizophrenic. It's the same guy. So we have he thinks he's a changeling. So we have we also have Gretchen and Jan going at it in the next scene. It's action figures, so when this happens, KS style, they're plastic, so it's not going to be anything really. Mad Mav shows up. It's a girly Mad Mav, though, and it's girl Jan Jury, so that's essentially Carrie dark, so that makes dark, Carrigan dark. So it makes it makes it funny because they're they change gender, so it's two ladies. So it's not that it's two hot girls kissing. That's not what's going on. It's just that it's a coincidence. And Thompson is dragged off into a harem apparently. But yeah. They kind of imply that Asian and the Orient is mysterious, like they used to in early 60s and 70s movies. Mysterious, kind of implied but not said in the story. The Zuri aren't technically like Chinese or something. They're not anything. They're green. They're Orion, more like Orions. They're not technically Russians either. They're Orions. They drag Thompson off, and they're gonna talk to him again. Anyway, I'm just summarizing what happened when I filmed this evening. Everything went well, but my voice is still recovering from that throat cold from a week ago, and as you can tell, I kind of still sound like Mr. Sulu. So it's just as well I stopped right now at about 9:36 or so, and said, I'm not doing it anymore tonight. We're far along. We have 20 pages of this 40-page story left, so we finished half of it, about half of it. So that's cool. So there's about 21 pages left. So it's at the halfway point of this episode. The episodes that follow are, I believe, The Cult of Oddities and Send Off. And then that one episode, Vanguard Unites, from the next one. Total about 50 more minutes after this episode. So the other half of novel, of the movie, the other half of the movie, the end of novel 1, and just a tiny bit of novel 2. We know about 30 minutes of novel 2, just because we want to wrap up the story arc with the people in it in a similar way to how Canary Space kind of wrapped that up too. But with that one, it was different because there was 4 of them, and there was just a lot going on with the third act. Everybody was doing stuff in the third act, and it's very similar with this one because you have a similar hero and villain thing that ends, and it's not rewritten like the Canary Space ending. Last half hour of Canary Space was rewritten. It's just that we're going to include the half hour from the next book because it was already done that way with the Vanguards story. It was already done that way, so it's already something that happens at the end of the beginning of book 2, and the end of book 1. That they continue that goofy villain story arc. There's not really a central Khan-like villain in the series. Raxler is not a Khan. He's not the Joker. He's more like the Lex Luthor to Clark's Superman. Yeah, that's more like what he is. He's not really the Joker. He's or he's kind of if Picard had another nemesis that was not quite Q to Picard either, because he doesn't have Q powers and stuff. And extremely off topic. Reading off the internet, what people thought the Daleks from the Doctor Who could fight the Star Trek people. I'm not doing a Doctor Who crossover. That would be really strange and dumb. Not doing that. But yeah, apparently they could fight the Borg. Okay. Anyway, but I'm not doing that. We're not doing that. That's dumb. Not doing that. There aren't action figures, but no. But yeah, the plan, giving these characters something different to do in the story and introducing us to a bunch of Academy people is similar to that Starfleet Academy story that's being made. And then, hence, we wanted to put this out because it was similar to that. And we knew that it was this is our version before they finish theirs. Ours will be out. Well, it's not the only reason we wanted to do Space Vanguards. We want to do that. So did. So here we are. We don't need 4 of them. 3 of them is fine. Three movies is fine. And movies 2 and 3. Normally we do this every month, but we lost a week. And although movie 1 we've done one pass of movie 1 in terms of editing. It's just sitting there as that one pass, and then we're gonna do one pass of movie 2 and edit that together. Or rather, we released movie 1 in March. We're doing movies 2 and 3 back to back. There's a first edit pass of movie 2 already in the can, but it's not quite done yet. It's got to go for a second and third pass, and then this one, same thing. The Vanguard space story will be over, and then they were hinting at a a Marvel Avengers level event story featuring Canary Space, Legacy, and Vanguards in a completely original story. We have not written that, so don't worry about it yet. We haven't written it, so don't worry about it. It would be similar to the probably be like finishing up the trilogy of the Legacy story with that whole idea of the Q Amanda being left out again from something, as we've been doing this season. She was the one contributor to so we included her. A bunch of stuff. It would have been awesome if we had the Abbeys and the Emma back, but we did not, so they weren't there. The adult ones, and then but we didn't have them this time around. But maybe after those sports camps are coming to Cannes, so there may be opportunities in June, as well as the return of Johnny, who doesn't write these stories, who would just so you have some of the premise and the idea of the last Legacy season, but doesn't write them. The nephew, the other nephew. There's So we're going to continue, and tomorrow. Didn't have any filming today until the evening at night because of the planned power outage of them fixing a power pole, and there was nobody on the set all day. So it's different, definitely different. It works. I do like it. It's not that any of these stories don't work. It's just that I don't want to continue into a fourth movie. That would be silly. So they're just doing 3 of them, and adding a fourth one just wouldn't be. It would be diminishing returns. The fourth one wouldn't be as good. We're not going into the prospector stuff, just because it wouldn't. It's okay, but it would be derivative and it wouldn't be as good. And although Canary Space, some of that stuff got better, could have gone and done better stuff in other books, and might in the future take some of those scripts and do other things with that. With some of those scripts, we will not do all 21 movies, because that's ridiculous. Only did 4 of those, 4 movies, and then we're going to do 3 over here.
Okay, brief note as we do this scene. What's in the script we can't film. The idea of these, one of them has been gender swapped, so that completely changes the idea. That's not why it can't be filmed. It can't be filmed because we can't get the figures naked. It's not physically possible, so they're plastic. Imply that they are just post-coitus in the story, and are called by what's her name, so that's fine. So that's what happens. So they're in the crew quarters. There's a really, really tight close-up on the 2 of them. Yeah, because of the way the scene has to be shot. So let's do this. So bottom of page 445, there's a scene where Augie Gold shows up out of nowhere. He's in the hallway and he overhears them. And he goes, "Oh, so they want a ship, do they?" Mahaha. And he flips words away. Typical like the evil group thing. I don't think necessarily that the rival team guy would do that. I realize that this is kind of a lower decks type of show. They're kind of silly and inept, but the rival team isn't really evil. They're just a rival team. They're just different. They're just rivals. Yeah, they're antagonists. They're not villains. And the scene after Brack encountering the admiral, the general, conveys the same information. So I think it would be punchier if when they show up and say we're going to go to the Higashi and go to the ship and the captain. It's punchier if they go to the other team for help, because that's actually like more lines with Star Trek kind of thing. And so that's what I'm going to do. No. Okay, there's a weird joke in here. It doesn't work. About them seeing and hearing the view screen. They would be really, really stupid if they actually, a joke, half of a joke is timing and all. But yeah, the idea that the Colonel is making a joke during a tense situation about trying to get a hold of the alien is kind of weird even in this series, so no, don't have him do that. 20 pages in a day. We've completed training day. Training mission. There's a there's 60 minutes left of stories here. Well, 50 probably. Yeah, so cool. That was training mission. The next one is a Cult of Oddities, and then Send Off, and then that episode from the next book. Yep. I don't think that this is quite a 40-minute segment. I mean, when you put it all together, I think it's like 30. So it's good we have an extra piece from the other one. A slight change to this scene. There was no transition to them going to a screen on a bridge. So what I'm going to do is just have Raxler on the screen. Also, the king wouldn't contact Clark. That wouldn't make sense. That does not make sense that he would do that. Raxler. It's just Raxler. That makes sense. Okay, so let's do this.
So, this is Calicat the Calicaster, and this is on the set of training mission. Finishing up the training mission, like a training day training mission. Yeah, I don't have much to add to this story so far. We completed some more filming, and now we're on to 3 short episodes. Hopefully we'll take those out in the next couple days. That'd be awesome. So we have, the training cadets, they put them on different ships. They introduce Patchy, they do other things. Ellerat Brack Returns, sort of a sequel to the other Ellerat Brack story. It wasn't, I know it's a different Brack, but it didn't make sense that it's fine. He's a shapeshifter. Do that. It's a different Scotty Brack. It worked. The story worked. McFarlane is a nod to, not Seth MacFarlane. McFarlane is a nod to somebody that appeared in the On Location First Press series in the 1990s, in 1994 and 95. And then the coming of the stories, and there was a character named McFarlane. She's named after that. Or he, and we gender swapped him. It's a man in this one. But it was a woman. I got a girl. One of Dre's friends was McFarlane. I'm surprised I didn't use Cowan in there somewhere. The other one. I just didn't. It's odd. Anyway, so that's the story. Yeah, it's not the guy from the Orville. Anyway, So that's it. Someone that is no longer around. They're long gone, but they're not dead. They're just long gone. They ended up not going anywhere. It ended up being that we put her in a. There was a Starship Locations episode. She happened to be part of the episode. And at the end, there's a visit from Riker and Troy who go back in time from Next Generation to visit us as adults at college. And there's a scene where they're like, oh, there's going to be the future and whatever. And that didn't happen like that. And then they did it again 10 years later. I don't know what that just doesn't make any sense. But in the because this story was written, that's what it is. Training Mission is actually a newer story written in the 2000s during that McFarlane era. It's during the 2000s. She's one of the contributors to this episode, basically. So put her name in there as a captain. It's supposed to be a lady, but in the script I made it a dude. That's what it was. So this episode is actually during Prospectors. We've done a Prospectors episode. So we did a previous one that was a Prospectors episode as well. The Kiwi fiasco. We threw that in there in the first book. This is another case of that. That's all. That's what it is. Yeah. I was trying to explain that. I just did. I just explained that properly. That's how that went. So it's a later episode. That's why the writing is better. Because that's like 8 years after the other series. Which is a little bit of a cheat, but I think it works here because you kind of want to have a middle story that sets up book 3 or movie 3, book 1, in a way where our characters do something a little different, do different things, move around, stir the pot a little and do different things.
and then that makes it interesting. So there you go. Nothing extra to add at all. Person's not around anymore. Yeah. So. There's this confusion as to when was this taking place and everything. Well, it was a later story. It was stuck in an earlier. Yeah, that's what happened. So it's a later one. During the I believe it was the 2003-2004 season of the then called Starship Chimera series. At that point, and this is a Chimera episode basically. It's a rewrite of a Chimera episode, the Academy episode. A rewrite of the Starfleet Academy episode, basically. The extra characters kind of are similar. The other team shouldn't be antagonists. They're not literally bullies. They should just be antagonists. They're not bullies. They are in the story. They help out though. They end up helping out. So, they do a shuttle decoy thing. I don't think they were actually killed on the other shuttle. I think that the implication is that the other shuttle was remote controlled. So, but yeah. So, and the McFarlane figure is actually a Mackenzie Calhoun. And Mackenzie Calhoun with the purple hair also inspired the Quaid character of Brad Boimler in Lower Decks. That's why he has purple hair. He's from the Mackenzie Calhoun planet. So, yep, that's what he is. He's one of them. So that's cool.
The Cult of Oddities. About 18 pages. It is an episode that predates the cult of TMS and COL, but it implies that TMS and COL are in it. It's sort of it's an early episode, and it was where the show was flying off the rails and wasn't making sense anymore. Which is why Training Mission and this one kind of don't go together, but we made it work with that ending scene. And now it works. So, yeah, so let's do this. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, so this is more of a spoof of the Waco cult than it is any other cult later on, because this was like, when was this, 1994? Anyway, so yeah, so we're going to continue with filming this episode.
This is Cal-Cat, the Cal-Catster, watching the set. Okay, you're watching, don't bother putting the background stuff back in. We have new stuff. We're on the set. It is the 16th. The executive producer was here, but not here, in here, outside. Dan, K.O. Dan. We were able to complete the, he didn't care what we were doing in the studio, so he carried away. So it's fine. We're still doing the movies, finishing up this third video of the Vanguard space, and this was the Cult of Oddities. It is a spoof of a Waco type cult, because that was 93, so this is 94 when the story was written. In terms of the timeline of this 3 movie series, it starts in the early part of February and March of for the first book, novel 1. It goes for about 2 or 3 months into that for that one. 2 or 3, almost 4 months into that one. And then at 2488, as it goes into 2488, about halfway through. And then novel 2 takes place in 2488 in the second half, the final half. And this one, novel 3, takes place a little bit into 2489. So we're just in 2488, about a year after the events of the other story. In terms of the timeline, though, it's a little fudgy, but because the years didn't add up on the show, the thing we put together, the Starship locations, then called Starcrackers, it took place over 92 to 94, and so that's what was going on. There was other stuff in there. There was the aborted time travel season that we didn't include, which is why there seems to be a weird jump between movie 1 and movie 2 and movie 3 because of that. Movie 3 especially is apparently they've grown quite a bit, as if a year has passed or more than a year has passed, and it's not supposed to be, but it is kind of. But sure, yeah, character growth makes sense. You have them grow a little, have them do different things. Have the third novel not just be a sequel with the crew doing the same thing, but have them do different things and have them have like an adventure where they mature a little bit, they grow a little bit. Not mature in a not fun way, but in a fun way. Have your characters do something else in a follow-up. It's more of a follow-up than a sequel that way. The Cult of Oddities is no exception. It was a Mark's Cards episode. Certainly a Mark's Cards episode. In fact, they reference the Mark's Cards creation in there, the card cheat Klingon guy. Marked cards, marking cards. It's right in there. At this point in the series and at the Academy, the COL stuff had just started, and at this point the other stuff was not as well known to the young student of the Academy, Calcat, and therefore I didn't know there was a cult in the making for real. This story is a spoof of a cult in the making, sort of like my subconscious knew there was a cult going on with that Academy, but my conscious did not. This story is about this weird cult thing, and just to make it not match anything we knew of at the time, it's a ridiculous cult. It's a cult of vegetable vegan people. The vegans did become kind of a cult later on, but it's not making fun of vegans. It's making fun of cults. It's not making fun of any specific cult. So the other culties of cult land out there shouldn't freak out. It's not a TMS episode, really. It's sort of they don't even address it. It doesn't matter that Kimchi has been doing subspace calls somehow to the other ship, even though it's not really possible. But sure, why not? How she gets in contact with him doesn't make sense. And she quickly turns into one of them rather quickly. Didn't make sense. But it's silly track. So it's Starship. It's silly track. It's fine. And they were drugged. And Sarah Giannoli was also drugged. And we kind of explore the gag that she keeps going on her cycle. In the original, it was Sarah Giannoli was supposed to be a lady. And the joke is it's also making fun of there was a male student on the flyer back in those days when the story was written, who was obsessed with the menstrual cycle. He was always talking about it, and hence Captain Estrogen, which was a sort of a spoof of him. He didn't know at the time, but it kind of was. Captain Estrogen and Captain Testosterone, but mainly Captain Estrogen. His was Captain Testosterone. Ours was Captain Estrogen. We weren't trying to be trans. We weren't trying to be gay. We weren't trying to be that. We weren't trying to be all that much ahead of our time, progressive. It's just that we thought that there was a response to this other. There was a couple of sexist guys on the flyer, so we were like making fun of them. Yeah. And of course, Henderson is a messy character. Back in the day, in the 90s, it was actually messy, and he was in on it, so he was aware of the character. But yes, this is not his grandson, really, or his son even. It's just somebody else. Doesn't matter. So the cult, it's a little too quickly, but the episode is rather short. So. And it's included because it's a kimchi one. There aren't very many kimchi. This is the only kimchi one, really. The other one is the pilot. Really, I mentioned kimchi. The pilot and, the first novel had more kimchi than the other ones did. The first novel had kimchi quite a bit in Kiwi Fiasco. That's right. It's the second one. Yeah, and the pilot. Yeah. Well, the pilot is really the novel, so it's not really a pilot. If it had been a series, they would have been 1 hour here and then a bunch of half an hour ones after that. But as the way we did it here is we wanted to make the first book, and in doing so, you get a trilogy of movies, roughly 2 hours long for each movie, and that's what we're doing. We're not doing any more. Just a little bit more into book into the next book, though, just a little bit, about a half an hour, because it's a wrap up. It's a fine the story that comes afterward is a fine wrap up. The third act breakup. They come back together.
We are starting on Send Off, the penultimate episode of Space Vanguards. So in terms of the story, if you're looking at this being a movie, the third movie, I realized that the story for book 2 introduced it. It was like a year later, and they were able to fix up a ship and give Schmidt a ship and put him on the ship, and it was a stronghold. But story-wise here, those of you that have watched that have watched 2.5, probably about 2 hours of this, get to the end, near the end, and they realize, hey, wait a minute, we can't just introduce another ship or have the ship fixed and drag it on another year. That's ridiculous. No. Schmidt has another vessel that he's commandeered as of the other story, as of the kimchi episode. So we have this other little auxiliary craft. That's the ship he's on in the last 30 minutes of the story, in the beginning of the next episode. It's not the Stronghold. It can't be. The Stronghold is destroyed. It's not the Stronghold in this version. It's just he's got this smaller ship he's flying around, which we've introduced. It's there and they're on it. So yeah, that's a change in the story from the original script. Because why introduce an entirely new ship and crew? Because it's not really supposed to be the end. It's not really supposed to be the beginning of book 2, even though it's a story from the beginning of book 2. It's still book 1. It's still movie 3, and that's the last half an hour or 20 minutes or so. And it would be really weird to just introduce a whole new set of circumstances, new ship, new crew, and all that, when we have to wrap it up in half an hour. So this is okay. Well, with this one, we are 2 pages or 3 pages away from the end of Send Off. So that's we're going to go back to that right now and not have any extra fluff at all as we near the end of that on John night. But we probably won't see John live. Maybe not. We'll see. So yeah, I read a little bit ahead here, and apparently it's a trick that the ship is this. That's stupid. I don't like that ending. I want this to be that the ship is decimated and that Wilcor is going to show up, and that the one that comes to save them is not her. That makes no sense. It's Ratzler that comes to save them, because yeah. Curran's character is gone. There's no reason to save the ship just because in the next story Schmidt has the ship. We're at the end of the story. There's no reason to add an extra layer of stuff going on. It's an ended here. Yeah.
So, a quickie behind the scenes update on Space Vanguards. Space Vanguards. March Cards was just here a couple of hours ago, and I have this Japanese samurai cat shirt, and yes, samurai cat shirt. So we have so there's and candy. There's a I didn't discuss Send Off at all. What was in Send Off, but I did. We discussed the ending of movie 3 here. That beginning of movie 3, and we had to use part of an episode from movie 4, or book 2, the beginning of book 2, in the same way Canary Space used that one, like I said before. But that one had a whole hour and a half, an hour to fill in. This one had only half an hour more because it's a 2-parter. Mark's Guard said to that, well, of course, yeah, put the second half of the 2-parter in there. If you're not going to do the rest of the 2-parter, just do the second half. Yeah, absolutely, put it in there. So it's a 2-parter. It's in there. Send Off 1 and 2. The other half of Send Off is the crew reunites. That's the other half of Send Off. So yeah, do that. So the end of this story, Send Off, it's cliffhanger, but you can actually see what happens next in the story. And neither of them will be terribly overlong, so it'll be fine. You have he likes the gender swapped characters, Anders and Sarah and Clark. The only thing that he pointed out was that they needn't be literally the offspring of the other characters. Schmidt doesn't have to be the nephew of Schmidt, and Clark doesn't have to be the child of Diva Clark or the child of Sam Clark, or whatever. That doesn't. And Kimchi doesn't have to be that. You don't need to do that. Just have them be what they are in the story. Don't explain it too much. It's fine. Just leave it alone. Yeah, it certainly is not a political screed either. The story is not reflecting anything current. The Cult of Oddities. He remembers co-writing that episode years ago instead of that one. We were thinking of Waco, but we were also thinking of vegans. They had vegetarians back then. They didn't have vegans. We sort of predicted vegans. But in that story, that was bad for that one. Send Off had nothing extra to mention. The changes to the ending scene where the other ship was gone. More matches, an earlier draft of the story. Yeah, the Stronghold. Why did the Stronghold come back under Schmidt having been rebuilt? Because in the original Rebel ship stories, it wasn't that ship at all. It was a different ship. It was the Ulysses and the other ship. They had different names, Iron Grip and Ulysses. So it's not even the same ship. So tying it in like it is in the book doesn't make any sense. Just have it be it's the Vanguard that they have as their last ship in the last half an hour. That makes the most sense. If you've only got a half an hour left, just tell that in the last half an hour. What's happening to that ship? And if you put it all together, it would be a Star Trek episode. It would be that 1 hour Star Trek episode would only be 1 hour. Anyway, Send Off 1 and 2. And a little bit of the sphere thing. Wilcor's demise there. Again. He's died before. It's a slightly different looking Wilcor. Slightly different. So maybe it's his brother. There's other Wilcors. This is his last name. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. So that's the take on Send Off here. The crew reunites. Like the idea that Henderson's almost going to marry Sarah Giannoli, but doesn't. And then the last scene in the final story will be that he doesn't because he's already flirting with other women. It's funnier that they went to a bachelor party and they planned a wedding, but they weren't really going to go there. They weren't. That's funnier. So his story. Go ahead, finish the third movie. Put the second and third movies together. He knows that Sphere of Influence came out just before he left for Japan, and he hasn't had a chance to watch it. But yes, there's a new version of Sphere of Influence, and you can still use as minimalistic ships as possible, but you probably need to build these two ships, the Berkeley from the second book and second movie, and the other one, this one, the Stronghold, as well. It doesn't need to be overbuilt. None of the ships need to be overbuilt. Just they'll be there in the story. And also Schmidt's smaller ship that they commandeered as of the Cult of Oddities. They gave him like a marine ship to fly around in. So it's like a larger shuttle, a runabout basically. Yeah, gave him a runabout. That could be the Iron Grip, I suppose. They didn't give it a name. I don't know if we'll see any visuals of the runabout. It'll probably just be footage from the other stuff. Just use it as a runabout because they're completely out of budget, out of money on these movies, and we're cheap. So it's probably just going to be stock footage that we've already shot for these kind of things. We do have a shuttle ship, but it wouldn't match. And we don't want to make another one and just, we're going to throw in the Jacques again. No, don't do that. It doesn't look right.
Okay, we're gonna start filming the final episode here. This is actually the end, the beginning of book 2. It's the second half of the cliffhanger. Is what it is. Send off 1 and 2. Vanguard reunites, but it's sort of a rewrite of it from the perspective of prospectors to combine them. But we're not worried about that because we just want this one episode here because it continues the cliffhanger at the end of the other one. Sort of pseudo cliffhanger. That's why we're including this. Let us begin without any extra filler or anything else. Let's just go now and explain everything later. A note in the story that instead of this scene jumping immediately to them on the bridge, they should detect the shuttle escaping when they've arrived on the bridge. When they've arrived in the they're on the marine ship. Okay, so we'll do that. So the next scene is on a sort of a proto version of Locarno and the Locarno lady in an early version of her. It's not directly because it's 94. San Jose State girl, well, might have been, no, she wouldn't have existed yet. So yeah, it's something else. It's sort of a proto Locarno story. Another commander of the Cumberland, Sabrina something, named after Elena Medina from Evergreen, I believe, who has a heroic action scene. I don't want to do that. I don't want to introduce a new character just to have something happen to them, and I don't want to do that there. It would be okay if this was a full-on series and you had, okay, we're going to go forward and you're going to have these other characters show up and you build this character's backstory and have her be like a version of the Locarno lady later on, which she kind of is in the story. So what I'd rather do is I'd rather have it be the guy from the last episode, McFarland, instead, and have him just go, okay, welcome to my ship. It's not even the Cumberland; it's his ship, and do that instead, just because that ship is handy, that bridge is handy, characters are right there, and this is the last half an hour of the series. So why add a bunch of new people when it's really obvious that even Hakim 2 should actually be one of the other guys from that we've seen before, one of the other team. I believe, yeah, I think he's one of the aliens. So yeah, he's there. And a Mad Math, of course, as the Evergreen girl. It's not our Mad Math; it's a different Mad Math. Anyway, but it's the one from the Academy story. Yeah, so that's all in here. Training Day episode. So yeah, I want to make it McFarland because he was the guy from the last episode, so it ties into this one. And I don't know why, when we were making a 2-parter out of Send Off 1 and 2, that we didn't do that. And make it it's a McFarland again. He shows up and he's right there. It should be him. That's who it should be. So yeah. Second unit. On the Starship Higashi, staying in for the Cumberland in the script. And we're going to start rolling. Okay, another change, quick before we do this. The Joaquin 2 character is just the other guy. Because they were trying to introduce a new character that apparently was part of the other thing in Evergreen, and there's somebody from, apparently the Elena character was supposed to be Elena Medina, but they changed the last name. So apparently, even in that version of it, they were all like, yeah, you really don't want to use the real person, so we're not using her. We're going to make McFarland. And also, Joaquin 2 was introduced because he was also from that cast, Evergreen. And it's like, why? I mean, the girl is bad enough that she is basically a Laurie Chu clone. And the other two are sort of clones of the other ones. But I think it's implicit anyway, so it's kind of fine. I mean, you got McFarland, who's clearly Jason Bauer from Evergreen. So yeah, you're already paying homage to them as the cadets anyway. So Joaquin 2 doesn't need to be added as a similar character. It's just the other cadet guy. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just the other cadet guy from before. Because this is the final story, and I'm assuming they were going to add them and do other things. But then a little bit later, 2 of them die immediately. So no, it has no bearing in the story. They're just there to be killed off screen, I guess, or on screen in this case, in some cases. Also, another brief note in the script: this is not the Cumberland, which was another sort of Evergreen nod. This is just the Higashi. And that okay, it's the Higashi. Okay. That's all. Yeah, it's supposed to be the Higashi. It doesn't die heroically, but oh well. But yeah, it's fine. It's what happens. Instead of Colonel Sabrina contacting him and saying, "I'm fine now and I'm on my ship and everything's gonna be cool," it's Raxler. Like in the other story, so it ties into the other story. Because we are near the end of this one, so yeah. That would totally make sense. It would be Raxler. Yeah, it's Raxler. Okay, part of the issue here is that this scene, as filmed, is being a little bit ad-libbed because I changed a little bit of it as I went. So I want Canrail to be on the ship that's getting sent into the sun, and Snappy come back, and then ship's destroyed. Yeah. So yeah, that's what's going on.
Calicat the Calicaster just wrapped principal photography, 640, on the set of Starship, Vanguard. The Advanced Guard is done. And we just wrapped principal photography. Let's put the two stories together, see if there's anything we have to. Hopefully there aren't any reshoots. Hopefully not. So we'll keep the sets up when you put the two together. Yeah, we are at the end. The last 5 minutes of the story were then added to and embellished on because we wanted to wrap the story up. And yeah, there were some changes in the final story there were some things that were in there that were part of book 2 that would have come in later to go around. The Q scene is just for fun. Marvel level event. It's very funny. Yeah, so the next the consensus of that is that the next story will not be this series, of course. It'll be tie in directly to the next Legacy episode. Doing a Legacy, where they will do a political screed spoof. However, it's not supposed to be anybody current, really, but wink, it kind of is. Not saying no, but you'll be able to figure that out. We're gonna do it in such a way that it'll be a fun, silly Trek adventure, goofy sort of fish out of water thing. It's not going to be dark and depressing like the real world is. No. It's going to be fun and adventurous. And the third of Legacy, the third Legacy story of this season. Season finale, basically. Yeah, so it's kind of like the convention thing, what we did earlier. And yeah, I'll continue with that. Something like that. I have not written it, so it's not that this is a sequel cliffhanger setup. It's like that they do in the Marvel movies, where there's a little scene at the end that they might do something else with that. Maybe they won't, but in this case, yeah, there's something in the works that they're hinting at. It'll be done on the cheap. It will be outlined. I'm not sure how. But let's finish this first. Let's put movie 2 and 3 together, which are the end of. It brings us up to the end of book 1 and a little bit into book 2. About half an hour into book 2. Yeah, so key events that happen, like Lighter coming in and then disappearing. But she was going to disappear at the end of the story and never be seen again. And like, no, she doesn't disappear. She shows up again, so they know where she is, because that would leave a cliffhanger. It's not a cliffhanger in this story. This story ends. Also, Raxler has defeated all of his enemies at this point, so Rebel Ship never happens. It really never happens because we did sort of Raxler goes, poof, he blows himself up, sacrifices himself, and ends up in Q land, on the Sphere mothership thing that they've stolen away from the crew, so they can't have it. That's apparently what Q has done. Yeah, more or less. There's a nod to Star Trek 6 in there. There's a bunch of other fun stuff. Henderson and Janoli. That scene's in there. That she comes back. They find her. We're presuming they all came back on the planet at the end, New Mystery Planet.
and then they're gonna go on or they're in the I guess they're in the meeting room. They came back to the ship after the battle. Presuming that's what happened, then fine, that's what happened. Yeah, so there's a whole itinerary of things that had to happen that were wrapped up.
Okay, so this is Calicat the Calicatster. This is the making of the third story from the making of. I wanted to add a little, because some noise got in the background of the other one, saying that some of the endings of some of the characters in the making of the story end up doing some of them are similar to the ending of Char and Holt. Well, that's because we stole the ending of Char and Holt remake from the Canary Space story. We changed that around and jumped ahead and put it it was actually earlier in it was this was where we got it apparently from our own stuff from this earlier story that was making of. We're going to put together the third movie. The second and third movie will air at the same time for Vanguard Space, and now we'll do other things. So this is the end of the making of for this. What's going on?